one, thank you so much for doing this. It's a really, really cool situation, really cool circumstance that we're in right now. Um, I am from Iowa, living Indiana, covering Indiana basketball. You, I believe, are born in Indiana, came to Indiana to watch an Iowa women's basketball game. You can't write this.
And the other interesting aspect is like as soon as the game's over, I've got to get to Pensacola by car.
Oh,
So I look at I went from outside of Nashville to St. Louis to see a friend of mine perform music. Now I'm at IU, and then I'll be in Pensacola. So it is, I think it's like an extra 15 hours of driving. But I'll tell you what, it's worth it to me to be part of history. And I do consider what's happening in the women's game and specific to Caitlin, I consider it to be history.
absolutely. I was telling my grandpa in Iowa that I was selfishly hoping that she would not play in Iowa City last week because we are the game after that, and I wanted to see the record get broken in person. But I got to ask, what is it about this Iowa women's basketball team and Caitlin Clark that has you so enthralled, so interested, and so captivated?
Well, she just captures the imagination. So I started my Caitlin Clark journey just by happening across this woman shooting what appeared to be impossibly long shots during her sophomore season, but she was making them with regularity. And I remember talking to a friend of mine from Iowa. I was like, "What's with this?" I didn't even know her name. Let's say, "Was this Iowa player? We can shoot from anywhere." He's like, "Oh, Caitlin Clark, she's amazing." And so I would just follow her specifically, but women's basketball more generally. So that even a few years ago, I found myself at a convention and the SEC playoffs. I was in Greenville. The SEC playoffs are going on. And I was like, usually I like to go back to my room and relax, but I'm going to go watch women's basketball. And so she has really reawakened, my interest in the game in general and reawakened the women's game to me in a big way. And I think it's fair to say that she's doing that not only for little girls dreaming of being the next Caitlin Clark, but she's like kind of a window into this great world for everybody.
Yeah. And I know you've always been a huge proponent and advocate for women's wrestling, but have you always been that way when it comes to women's sports in general? I know I used to date a women's volleyball player in college, but I was so young, I don't think I really understood or appreciated the work that they put in. And then when I started covering this Indiana team, women's team in 2018, and then the Indiana Fever in 2019, I really saw it up close and spent a lot of time around it. I really appreciate the work that the women put in. Have you always been an advocate for women's sports as much as you have women's wrestling, or has Caitlin Clark and this team really been what set that off?
Well, Caitlin has taken it to the next level for me, but I go way back in women's athletics because my father was the athletic director of our local high school. And he would drag me and my brother around, not just to like the marquee men's basketball, football, lacrosse was a big sport in our school, but we went to everything: women's cross country, field hockey, women's basketball. And on top of that, because he was also the chairman of Suffolk County basketball, and because we had a good sized gym, not like some of these gymnasiums you see in Indiana that can seat 8 to 10,000 people. That's high school, which is crazy to me.
Hmm.
But 1,000 seater was one of the biggest gymnasiums in all of Long Island. So we would host, we meaning the high school, would host the men's and women's tournaments. And so I would see at least 20 women's games a year, probably for 10 years. And then when my dad became an active booster for our local college that gave us courtside seats, I was usually the guy asked to go to the women's games because all the grandchildren wanted to be there at the men's games.
Right.
And Stony played a high quality. Now they weren't a Big Ten quality team, but it was really good basketball. And I will throw even before that a mystery woman who I heard a rumor played for Tennessee, but I could never verify it. And she really opened my eyes because, again, Ward Mello High School also ran an incredibly fun, but also very competitive recreation program that would draw some of the best college players and even some pros for pickup games. And this woman would go in there and she would hang with the guy, not only hang with them, but she was better than most of them. And so I think my eyes were opened at a young age to how good the women could be. But Caitlin has taken that to the next level, reminded me of all that, and then some. And plus, like I said, she's not just doing it for a random 58-year-old guy who happened to have defeated Dwayne The Rock Johnson twice for the WWE title. But she's doing that across the board, just really
Yeah,
serve as an ambassador for the sport. And I just think we'll all look back on this season as a moment when the game became far more popular.
absolutely. It's crazy that this interview started with a Facebook post and a comment on a Facebook post. That's the first time that's happened for me, and I'm sure probably for you. The one thing that really stood out about that post was you had mentioned that it was a lifelong, I think you said a lifelong dream to watch a basketball game at Assembly Hall. Is this your first time going to a game at Assembly Hall?
It is. The only other time I've been at Assembly Hall was to watch a Barbara Mandrell concert when my brother was a freshman. So I
Nice.
went to visit my brother. So this is 82 or 83. And Barbara Mandrell played Assembly Hall. But as many IU games I watched on TV, the fact that I was 12 years old when I collapsed into tears when a Wayman Britt elbow sent Bobby Wilkerson crashing to the floor. I can quote that as I wrote a poem about it in seventh grade. Yeah, I was such a big IU fan. Um, but this is my first time going to a game at Assembly Hall.
What does it mean to you? I mean, you're in Bloomington, you traveled up from Pensacola, you're just, I think, blocks away from Assembly Hall. It's here. How does it feel to finally be here, right here at Assembly
Right.
Hall?
That's my tagline when I pander to fans around the world. It feels great. Like I feel almost like a kid on Christmas morning, except now is my midnight. I've got, we're doing this about 6 hours before game time.
Yeah.
Uh, Someone from IU is going to give me a tour of Assembly Hall, which is
I
great.
was hoping that would happen.
They would prefer that I not be wearing my Caitlin Clark jersey. And that wasn't negotiable. Like, I'm coming with my black and gold.
I would, for the last week, I was really hoping that you would be able to get a tour of Assembly Hall because that would be perfect. That would be almost poetic for you to, and I would do the same thing. In fact, the first IU game I ever covered was a football game against Iowa. I wore an Iowa shirt, and our other reporter Brian picked me up, and he just looked at me and said, "You sure you want to wear that today?" I said, "Absolutely, I want to wear this today. I am on the field with the Iowa Hawkeyes and I'm wearing the shirt. It's happening." That I realized pretty early on I should not have worn that shirt to that game. So
Well, we should all be allowed to wear any shirt we
this
want.
is true.
I mean,
This
I
is
think it's
true.
great when you pan to a highly competitive football game, and
Mhm.
there's a guy wearing a Rams jersey and a bang, whatever the case may be, and
Yes.
they're clearly friends. They root for different teams. The idea of fist fights because you happen to like a team that comes from a different city is just silly to me.
Yes.
But I am excited. I really am excited about this.
While while I'm doing this interview, I have somebody waiting for me to call them back. And it's somebody you know very well that you've spent time around this year, and that is a Mr. Al Snow down in
Al's on
Louisville,
the phone.
Kentucky. I'd emailed him last night because I want to shoot the OVW show that's coming to Indy, and there
Yeah.
was a major cell phone outage. I think he called me at like 11 o'clock and I didn't get the call, so I'm calling him back when we're done with the interview. But you spent time at OVW this year in January and February, and I wanted to ask what was like that experience for you to be at OVW working closely with Al Snow again after all these years. What was that experience like for you?
It was just a blast. I just told Al something. I said, money, we're not going to talk money. I don't want to be paid to come. I want to, if I'm helping people, that's great. But I'm also rediscovering my own passion for wrestling by seeing the men and women at OVW, giving up everything to follow that dream. I just feel like they're on the cusp of something big there.
Hmm.
They're starting to
Yeah.
do live shows. There are people literally from around the world now who are familiar with OVW. And I just wanted to be a part of it. And Al kind of wrote me in a way where I was actually participating, not just standing around observing. So I've had nothing but a great time. I guess my official little run there is over, but Al and I are already talking about me coming back for another 5, 6 week run.
What was it about Jack Vaughn, the veteran Jack Vaughn, that resonated with you so much? He's so good.
He's a lot of fun. He's the veteran Jack Vaughn. First of all, there's not a stronger mustache in the
Yes.
game. I mean, Sam Elliott calls Jack Vaughn for mustache tips. That's how strong his mustache game is. And it's just like he's the veteran. He takes a pounding. He looks athletic, but odd. He's a lot of. There are people who catch your eye, for different reasons. Like
Yeah.
personally, like Ryan Von Rocket and the Von Rockettes. I thought they were, that's a fun gimmick, and then you find
Hmm.
out this guy is an outstanding wrestler.
Yeah.
Crystal drives in from Chicago. Katie, who's a full-time pharmacist, drives in from Knoxville. And the money that they're being paid barely covers gas, and that's not a knock on Al. It's just
No.
a truth about what it takes to run a wrestling company on a shoestring budget. And they're doing great things. They're providing opportunities. I mean, the only thing they're not providing at this time is like good livings, but you never know. We get the word out, and these people who've been doing it for the love of wrestling might find themselves, doing okay.
And they've really stepped their production and their product up over the last year. I remember I watched it on TV a year ago in the summer to see one of the girls that I work with at our local wrestling promotion on the show, and it was cool. But man, the production they have now is
Yeah,
they've really raised that bar for themselves. It's really cool to see how far they've come along in such a short period of time.
I agree with you. I agree with you. And if I can help, lead them, put some more eyeballs on it, um, if I can be the Caitlin Clark of OVW,
Ooh. Ooh.
that's a terrible comparison because she's doing it in every aspect. And then people are paying attention because she's so amazing. I'm just
Yes.
like pointing to a product and going, you should watch that. It's not quite the same thing.
The one similarity that I see between you and Jack, and I talked to Jack about a week or two ago on Zoom, with for an interview. The one of the similarities I see is Jack Vaughn, the person, nothing like the veteran Jack Vaughn. Mick Foley, the person, you have a reputation to be one of the kindest, warm-hearted, funniest people in all of wrestling. Cactus Jack, nothing like
He
that.
scared people. Oh, Cactus and the original Mankind. Yeah.
Yeah.
They struck fear into the hearts of men, women, and children alike. Yeah. And so I think it was a shock, to a lot of people at first, where it was like, "What? Wait, this has been." It wasn't an act; it was a portrayal.
Hmm.
Some people might say, "What's the difference?" I guess it is. You're feeling it. You kind of become that character. Um, and I would get deep into character, and sometimes it was difficult to get out. It has not been difficult. My livelihood doesn't depend on being
Right.
that guy anymore. And now when I go to conventions, I'm not that. I'm fun. I love talking about the old days, but I don't know where or the the drive and the aggression came from, because the aggression isn't what I am in real life at all.
I've always wanted to give you a special thank you ever since I was a little kid, and I never thought I would be able to. When I was in fifth grade, I was homesick from school. I was not allowed to watch WWF as a kid. I grew up in a very strict Christian household.
Right.
But I was homesick from school one day. My mom rented me a wrestling video. She had no idea what it was. She saw it was wrestling. So Royal Rumble 1999. And it is still one, you are two of my favorite matches. The ECW One Night Stand Tag Team match with Edge, Tommy Dreamer, and Terry Funk.
That
Still
was a
one of
good
my
one.
favorites.
Yeah, that was a
Still
good
one
one.
of my favorites. But the I Quit match between you and Dwayne Johnson at Royal
Yeah.
Rumble 99 is still one of my all-time favorites. And I want to thank you for accidentally getting me hooked on the WWF without my mom knowing, even though she is the one that provided the gateway for me to get hooked.
Well, you know what? It was the 25th anniversary. That match just
Mhm.
took place, and I put up a Facebook post with the actual chair The Rock hit me with 11 times. And it's in pretty bad shape. There was a, you can see a circle on the lip of the chair that was wrapped around my head. It's the same shape as my skull. Um, and that was a really wild, really rough match. Things got away from us a little bit, but it was a good match. And we look back on it like we were doing what we thought we needed to do to continue that story.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of people focus on one or two specific matches of your career, which I do not want to do. I think people overlook 1999 in your career as one of the most eventful years of your entire career. In fact, I think it's really impressive that in January of 99, you and The Rock were in that blood feud. And come fall, you had found a way to make fans forget, fall in love with the Rock and Sock connection, and they had just completely forgot you were
Well, I
at each
don't think
other's
they'd
throats.
forgotten. I think it was the history we shared as foes that made
Okay.
the team so appealing because it shouldn't have worked, but it did. You know, it's the odd couple, you know.
Yeah.
The Rock would, I mean, that first time, and we never, I don't want to say never, but rarely bounced ideas off each other, or let alone like verbiage or, a script, as some people call it. That was just the two of us riffing. And some of the most fun moments we shared were after the cameras turned off and we were just entertaining people. Like, I think it did, definitely raised my confidence. And don't get me wrong, I am not trying to take any any credit for the Rock's post wrestling career, but I have to feel like the times we spent, like like getting those reps in and seeing, not just that he could entertain, but that he could riff off someone. So it wasn't just Dwayne playing solo, solos. It was Dwayne riffing off someone else who was pretty good. I think together we made a lot of people smile when we were together as a tag team.
How proud were you guys of the fact that even with the history you guys had, fans loved it as much as they did? And the history was the history, but they just, and it was a fast build too. It was like one week he came to your defense, and the next week,
Boom. Yeah.
boom.
And I love people, and I've got to get off the phone here in just about
Yeah,
5 minutes. Yeah.
yeah.
But I've had people come up to me and go, "Oh, I love the Rock and Sock Connection. You guys are the greatest tag team." And I'll say, "Can you recall a match we had?" And they hesitate. And it's not an insult. What it is, it's telling as to how much they love the camaraderie and the backstage vignettes and the in-ring promos. Like they were so good that the matches were like an ancillary product. But just going in there again, making people smile. Neither one of us realized at the time that we were doing something that was that special. And it was like years, it was a few years before I started hearing the stories. Hey, I was going through chemo at the time, and you guys made us laugh. Hey, I was being bullied in school, and I would see Mankind, and I knew that he didn't fit in like most people did. And so I didn't even realize that we were helping people on a different level. I knew we were entertaining, but I didn't know it was going deeper than that.
Final question. Who's your pick for tonight? Iowa or Indiana?
They're both going to the tournament, right? They
Yes.
get the Big Ten tournament. I mean,
Yes.
Indiana's got a real quality team. I gotta tell you, I'm black and gold today.
Same. Same.
Black and gold.
I same. I do think it's possible Indiana pulls off the upset tonight. Is an absolute possibility, but I gotta go black and gold as well.
Me
Absolutely.
too.
Mick, thank you for doing this. Thank you for taking time and being patient with me. Um, I really want to thank you for doing this. Thank you so much.
Hey, we made it work. Thank you. Have a nice day.
Absolutely.